Rubenstein, key issue 4, looking at how less developed countries, how they face obstacles in development and what they can do to overcome those obstacles. And the sections we're looking at is financing development and fair trade. And here are the key terms: International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Look at the debt crisis. We'll look at structural adjustment programs, privatization as a part of those programs, fair trade versus sweatshops, what microlending is, non-governmental organizations and their role in development, focus on women as it relates to development, sustainable development, also called social entrepreneurship, and tourism as a strategy of development, particularly ecotourism. So in order for LDCs to develop, they need money, and often they get that money through two means. One, through loans from the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank, or they might get money through the foreign direct investment, which is not a loan, but an investment by various transnational corporations, which we looked at in the last section. So the two lenders, and this started after World War II, it would be the International Monetary Fund, also called IMF, and the World Bank. And the World Bank largely loans money to LDCs that particularly need help in development. International Monetary Fund will loan money to really anybody in the world. The problem with loans is that countries get themselves too far in debt and they cannot pay back those loans. Largely, International Monetary Fund and World Bank are controlled by MDCs, largely the United States and Western European countries, and they don't want to continue to loan to countries that cannot pay back their loans. This damages the financial stability of the banks. So then it becomes a problem for these LDCs, not having enough money. So often what happens when countries cannot pay back their loans and International Monetary Fund and World Bank do not want to just forgive that debt because they feel like that would encourage bad habits, and LDCs would continue to keep borrowing money and not, being able to pay it back. So these countries have to go through what's called a structural adjustment program, and there are strict requirements of how they can spend their money and how they can't spend their money. So as they kind of refinance their debt and get more money, LDCs cannot spend that money on the military, but they must spend it on means to build their country in ways that they can continue developing their industry or their services that they're providing and selling on the global market. Often industries in these countries are controlled by the government. That would be like a planned or controlled economic system. So often part of these structural adjustment programs are that governments are required to privatize many of their industries or service jobs. And so infrastructure, these structural adjustment programs want governments to stop all subsidizing, controlling and financially supporting these industries. Something would be like mining operations or utilities, electricity or water, hospitals, education, road building, and so forth. So, and often in privatizing these government positions, transnational corporations then move in and provide for foreign direct investment and taking over these government industries. So part of the criticism of the program is that the money that's been refinanced to pay back their debt, this extra money, is often stolen. Maybe people in leadership, or they do not use the money wisely. They develop projects. You have a private organization or a non-governmental organization come in and help with water and drill wells. This is an example in the book. And often the technology that they use in these projects is not particularly beneficial to the local area. It's not using local technology. And so when you have things like a solar water pump and the solar part breaks down and there's no means to fix it in the country, then it no longer gets used. So criticisms, include, poorly thought through projects without using local technology, corruption, and then this privatization of these government services. The local people in the country lose their jobs through this privatization, and then often these industries that have become privatized have gone to large corporations, and so that money then that is being made and used for these different industries that used to be government, that money then goes to these large corporations, and local and national organizations or local and national people lose those jobs. So that's the criticism. A praise would be, the poor are going to suffer anyway, and there's no reform, so at least there's some reforms that are required, and, it's trying to help reduce the poverty and corruption, but there hasn't really been a good track record with this. So as far as the debt crisis, this map looks at their debt as a percent of their gross national income, and this map is from 2005. So this is actually before the financial crisis in 2008 that has caused a lot more countries to be in debt, and we'll look at that in our classroom. But as of 2005, you see largely the countries in Africa are in the most debt and struggling financially. Fair trade is a variation of the international trade approach, but it's looking at, it's using more sustainable and socially accepted means of business. So fair trade is when your products are made and then traded according to standards that are protecting the workers and protecting these small businesses. This is often in contrast to large factories, often called sweatshops. You see these, you hear about these, and you've read about these. Bangladesh, that was just burned down recently. Sweatshops in Vietnam or in the Philippines or in China or various places in Asia largely, where these large factories don't pay their workers a fair wage, they don't have good working conditions, they're not safe, they're not fair, and so fair trade makes sure that workers are protected and the cooperatives, these small businesses that join forces together to create their products, that they are protected too against very large multinational corporations, which is often they're difficult to compete with. So the two sets of standards for fair trade are, one, the producer standard, and two is the worker standards. So the producers, they're the ones that produce and make the product. So you have cooperatives, lots of people join together, or even lots of the same type of industry. Maybe these are all cocoa farmers or all coffee farmers, or they all make certain kind of product like, T-shirts or something like that. So they join together, lots of cooperatives, individuals or small groups join together, and they pool their resources, so they basically have kind of like one account, a larger amount of money. They manage themselves, so there's no middleman. They manage themselves, and they maintain complete control over the product and the process of making their product and their working conditions. The consumer prices and quality, consumer prices are higher, but the quality is usually higher, and the standard of the product is usually higher quality. Often you see organic things being made in this way, as they control the process and it means that's safe for everybody, the environment, the workers, and their own business. And then fair trade worker standards would just be that you've got these improved working conditions, fair wages, and everything's fair. So that would be fair wages. Sustainable development. So this is looking at some more thoughts on development. So this is also called social entrepreneurship. And development is that, the whole country is developing not only financially, but they are developing in such a way that it's not hurting society. So the focus on social or cultural development and also environmental development too. So you're not developing at the expense of people in the country or at the expense of the environment. You develop, but not quite maybe as fast, so that everybody, the community and the environment is not hindered. Often you have organizations, nonprofit organizations, these are called non-governmental organizations, so they're not connected to any government, NGOs, and they might be like a non-profit or not-for-profit organization that will go and maybe drill wells or maybe help educate people in a community to know how to plant, certain plants in a sustainable way, or help women to, get financially viable, get means to have an industry like goats that might be able to milk and make cheese, or sheep that they can shear and then use the wool to make products. So sustainable development or social entrepreneurship is happening all over the world, where a focus is on also the development of the society and the environment. One example I have here is George Foundation's Women's Empowerment Project. This was headed up in Bangalore in India, and here's a quote from the website. TGF aims to alleviate poverty, promote health and a clean environment, and strengthen democratic institutions and values in India. So this would be an example of social entrepreneurship. Tourism as a means of development is also something that is becoming more a viable means for countries that have beautiful environment and want to take advantage of the things that they have as a means of tourist destination. So Costa Rica would be one example of this, and their ecotourism, as they're protecting their environment and using their environment as an asset in bringing people to tour their country. And then they set up the infrastructure to help with that. Cables over the rainforest canopies for people to go through, or tent camping areas or whatnot. The United Arab Emirates with Dubai's islands that are in the form of a palm, or world islands, and they have these beautiful hotels and ski resorts, and it's become a tourist destination for the wealthy in this part of the area. So tourism would also be a means of development, and using the assets that a country has. And in United Arab Emirates, that would be their lots and lots of money that they've gotten from oil.